Good morning, sports fans. Ryan and Matt here, DFS 5-Pack. So I wanted to thank all the viewers. So you guys have shown up huge for us the last couple of days. The like button has been getting pummeled like they're the Memphis Grizzlies last night or something like that. So we sincerely appreciate that from both of us to you guys. So what we're going to do today is we're going to cover both slates, the two-game slate early, which we're going to talk about now, and then we'll do the night slate. We're going to do both of them in the members-only fashion. So we're going to go through basically every game, unless we just feel like it's a cross-off game. Some games just aren't worth looking at, and then we kind of ignore that one and don't talk about it a whole bunch. But we appreciate the help you guys have given us. Like, you can watch like the video views go up when you guys pummel the like button like that for us. So thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Got New Year's coming up, so we want to start out 2021 with a bang. We want to finish out 2020 strong, and I'm happy we got two slates to go over. Let's get it, man.
2020 has been a rough year for a lot of people, and it ends even worse, guys. The Office leaves Netflix in a few hours. I know for a lot of us, it's a nice thing to have around, and it's done in a little bit. So you might as well end the year with one more punch in the face. But that's all right, guys. 2021 will be here in a little bit. Things are on the upswing. I have a feeling. Sports are here to talk about every single day, so that's good for us, and I think it's good for a lot of you guys too, because I know we're not the only ones who like sports. Y'all are, on YouTube checking out sports videos, so clearly you're there with us.
Amen.
So continue to pummel that like button. We don't want you guys to stop, but this is kind of our things from you guys to us. And if you're interested in a membership and you like the members only style, our memberships are very, very affordable. All you have to do is go to the website link below. And we just got a variety of ways you can sign up. Like the $400 lifetime thing, I mean, it seems like a lot of money, but like you never make another payment. Baseball, basketball, football, all the videos, all the write-ups covered permanently. Never ask you for another dollar. Most popular package is going to be the monthly membership. You pay $30 a month. You get every sport that we're doing at that time. Great. An annual membership, $200, gets you a full calendar year. Crap, I forgot to get the NBA package switched, but that's going to be switching. If you want it, I can't stop you. And then the members only content. You just want today, like maybe you're a sporadic twice a week player because you're a very busy person. A day package is $5. They're all up there at your disposal. And just to give you guys kind of an idea of what a write-up looks like, you'll have attached the video, and then we just go through like the firm, like 5 plays we're looking at for that day. You know what I mean? And then we do like small player pools, and then you get Matt's GPP stuff below that. So we go through our, favorite 5 players of the day, and then we give you smaller player pools to choose from. So if you're a busy person that just wants to be competitive but doesn't have time to do all the research, it should make it easy on you.
Yeah, it should make it really easy on you. I was talking with a couple people recently about playing DFS, specifically NBA DFS, without some sort of, knowledge base or, website that you're subscribed to. Even if you don't love us, even if you don't love the DFS 5-Pack, good luck winning an NBA DFS on your own.
Yeah, it's a tough game, guys. So, all right, we got a 2-game slate on the early one, and I think one of the things that we'll talk about from a strategic standpoint on a 2-game slate, and especially right now, because blowouts are insane to start the year. We got 3 more last night with the Clippers rolling on the Blazers. The Grizzlies, at one point, I tweeted about this, were being outshot from 3-point range by the Boston Celtics, 12-19 to 2-19. That's where the point discrepancy comes from. And then what was the third blowout yesterday?
Dallas.
Yes, Dallas getting rolled by Charlotte. So they're real. And if you look at this 2-game slate, your eyes should immediately gravitate to the Chicago versus Washington game, right? I mean, that's the one that seems like the obvious one. It's got a projected total of almost 20 points higher. But like, what if that game blows out? Like a game stack of Cleveland, Indiana, that's not your optimal play on paper. But for GPP players, like going heavy on this game versus this game, you're going to come in at lower ownership. I don't think it's the right play on paper, but you only have to be better than the other game on a 2-game slate.
So I agree with that. The other point I'll make, and I wanted to get your opinion on this, like last year, 2 years ago, any recent time, it would seem really hard to go to this Cleveland-Indiana game, excuse me. Now, it's obviously not as good of a game as Chicago-Washington, but Cleveland is better. Specifically, they're better offensively. They just have better players. And Indiana is not like the grind-out team that they've been the past couple of years. So I think this game is better than it otherwise would have been, like I said, in recent times. Do you agree?
I do agree. The numbers kind of back up that point, but I don't think it's glaring. What I mean by that is Chicago This is very small sample size, guys. So please, please, please don't react on these numbers. Chicago's second for possessions per game. Washington's 6 early on. Cleveland's 8, and then Indiana's 19. But we're only talking about a couple of possessions, right? Like, it's not like it's this like flabbergasting amount of numbers. So while I think the Cleveland guys are in the worst spot on this slate, I don't think it's by like this monstrous margin that there's no path that like a Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, Andre Drummond stack could not beat out, Beal, Westbrook, and Bertans or something like that. Like, it's probably not the right play if you're making the optimal play, but you only got to beat it today. And that's really, really feasible.
Yeah, very feasible. Also, like, I know something that you've kind of got in my head all the time. Mondays are weird days. Today's not Monday, but it's a weird day. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's during the day.
Yeah.
On a Thursday. This is not a usual like type of strategy for these guys. So it could be a little bit off. That being said, just gun to head, I do prefer the Chicago versus Washington game. I'm just saying, like, I don't prefer it by what I would expect the ownership discrepancy to be. Like, I think like these guys will be at least twice as owned as these guys.
I agree.
With the exceptions of some of the good plays. Like, for example, the cover boy has already been drawn up. How do you not like Sabonis today?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard not to like Sabonis.
Okay, so let's go through each team specifically, and then we'll do some real brief lineup building because this shouldn't be a very long video with only 2 games. And let's start with the most contrarian of teams, which is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, they're probably the worst team to look at on paper, but there's some guys I can get on board with. And if you think this game is competitive and the other game just gets, one team gets hot from 3 and blows out the other one, then you should be looking at this game.
Yeah, definitely. So it's the point is that if you think the other game like gets out of hand, it doesn't matter what this first game is. You should be looking at it.
Right, and anything can happen early this season in the NBA. We saw my Bucks at 29 3-pointers the other night after getting rolled by New York. Last night we saw Charlotte blow out Dallas. Nobody was expecting that, right? Like, the Clippers flat out rolled on the Trailblazers, who just beat the Lakers the night before. Shit's a little wild early in the year. You know what I mean? Like, these guys did not have their normal warm-up time. Some of these dudes were playing more recently than they could possibly imagine. Sometimes, like, Jaylen Brown is just insane levels of hot, and Memphis just can't hang with him.
Yeah, exactly. That happens. Again, not only did it hurt Memphis, but it hurt Jason Tatum a lot. Brown just stole his shine.
Which was great because Kevin Durant was my power forward of choice, so I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, as far as Cleveland goes, the guys that get my attention immediately would be Garland, who's balling. I know you like him. I know you like what you've seen. I don't think he would make my optimal lineup, but I'm not saying I couldn't end up here. You know what I mean? He's played really, really well to start the season. Had a rough game against Philly from a DFS perspective, but dude didn't have to play in the fourth quarter.
So, and I think that's also the point, like you mentioned, optimal lineup. And obviously we're talking about like building an optimal lineup. On these 2-game slates, like building the optimal lineup with who you think are the best players is obviously always important. But it's even more important, like on these slates, getting different. Because like you said, that Washington-Chicago game is going to be so high owned. And the leverage is just massive with Cleveland on this slate. I mean, you bringing that up, I was already thinking about it hard. Obviously, I'm fully on there. And that's my thing about Cleveland is I actually think that they're not a good team, but they have better players than they've had recently since LeBron left.
They also have a shorter rotation right now. You are going to be missing Kevin Love for a couple of weeks right now. Kevin Porter's still not around. Okoro's not in the lineup. So there's going to be a variety of guys who might see a couple extra minutes today.
Yeah, and that matters because Okoro's going to be playing a lot. You talked about Kevin Porter. I still think he's a big part of the future. So I'm with you, man. I think that the main 3 from Cleveland I'm looking at are Garland, Sexton, and Drummond. And I think you can throw Nance in there.
Sure. I mean, those are the big 3. And then a guy who's kind of up there as well. I do think for me, the elephant in the room today is going to be Andre Drummond because I got a couple of studs I'm interested, i.e. Russell Westbrook, which seems, pretty obvious is a guy that you're going to want to look at. I do think Sabonis, to me, is, a borderline lock in this one. And then Drummond is the next guy up. He's been awesome, right? Like, he's been nothing short of sensational. Now, the blocks and steals have been off the hook. These will slow down, right? He's not a 5 block or 4 block a game type of guy, so those will slow down. The steals will slow down, but he's been awesome.
I mean, he's only averaged 0.8 blocks per game right now.
Yeah, he had 0 the first one. It's more like he had 11 the last week. Like, he's just been phenomenal.
He does that though. His peripherals have been amazing the past 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he's been scoring the rock pretty routinely. He's not even necessarily needing major minutes to do it. He dropped 57 in 26 minutes against Philly, 60 against New York in 33 minutes. Hell, even in the opener when we liked him and he was a little bit of a letdown, he did hit 38 and a half DK points without a block shot. And he did it in 27 minutes. So, yeah, I can completely get on board here. And he might go a little bit under-owned because people want to roster Russell Westbrook and some other guys.
100%. And the second part of that is there aren't necessarily like scrubs to roster on this slate. You know what I mean?
Agreed, because Washington's also getting Rui back today, which cuts into like a couple other guys that you might be wanting to look to roster in like in the 5K range.
Agreed. I will say though, one guy that I think you could look at on the cheap end is Javel Mcgee.
Yeah, I was looking at him this morning. I agree.
He's been playing, all the minutes that Drummond doesn't play, he plays those minutes. He's basically game script proof in that regard, and he's got upside for more minutes. Like if you are playing on the fact that you want a lot of the second game, I would definitely be looking at Mcgee, especially.
The other point is we haven't seen it yet this year as much, but Drummond's a hack. He gets into foul trouble routinely, and you're going to need some size with no Kevin Love to try to deal with Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis. So why couldn't Andre Drummond pick up 2 quick fouls? Like we haven't seen that story a million times in our life. And
you're right. I am a little bit worried that like one of these games Drummond is going to come crashing down. Like,
he will.
With like a 30-point DFS game. And obviously that's not zero, but that's awful for his price.
Yeah, and then that's going to happen because it happens to everybody, right? Like you can't be perfect forever. He's been awesome to start the year, though. So I'm with you. And if you're fading Drummond, then I like the idea of using Mcgee because you're obviously piggybacking off the fact that Drummond's either not playing well, in foul trouble, missing time, the game's blowout-y. Like if you're stacking Chicago versus Washington, which doesn't have ideal centers to pay for anyway, like Mcgee makes sense.
He's my guy if I'm doing that. Like for sure, because it is hard to see like both of Drummond and Mcgee just completely busting, except unless the Cavs are just that bad. But if Drummond isn't good at all, like McGee's going to play those extra minutes.
All right. So also from a side note, there's a strategic difference playing 2-game slates versus say play like an 8-game slate, for example. Like for me, and we all play differently, so this isn't going to apply to everybody. On a 3-game slate like this, I typically play one main lineup that takes about 2/3 of my buy-in for the day, and then I play a 3-entry max that gets a little bit more from it. Like on a slate like this, I'll play my best lineup, which is probably going to be an integration of both games. And then the other 2 entries in my 3-entry max will be very heavy on one game and very heavy on the other, in case one of those games goes all out, maybe even overtime, and the other one's just a flat-out bust.
For sure, it makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure how I'll play this slate out yet. It's definitely an interesting one, as I like to say.
All right, going back to the guards on Cleveland for a second, I prefer Garland over Sexton based on the fact he's cheaper and he's played a little bit better, but the shooting guard eligibility on Sexton is really nice.
Yes, it is, and I also prefer Garland, but I think most people who look at those guards will prefer Garland at the cheaper price point.
Also, and then the other guy that could be in play today without all these forwards is going to be Chetty. I'm not super excited about it, but I do need some cap space, guys. He's coming off of a bad game where he shot 2 of 12. Okay, that happens. He's not like filling up the stats, but he is scoring relatively routinely this year. And we know he's capable of decent games. So Chetty's a guy I'm looking at just as more of a filler, especially if I'm heavier on bigger money guys from the other game.
So Chetty's a guy. Last game they started with Love out. I'm pretty sure Nance started at the 3. I don't know if they do that again, and I don't like Chetty as much if he's starting.
Yeah, I get that. It's sometimes guys coming off the bench are better because it's different for their role, and he can be a guy like that because he can help run the offense a little bit.
Like when he's in the second unit, exactly, he's looking to score. When he's with that first unit, like he's not looking to score as much with Garland, Sexton, Drummond, etc.
Well, and it's maybe not even that he's not looking to score. He doesn't get the ball as much because those guys are better.
That's what I meant. Like they're not looking for him to score.
All right, so let's flip over to Indiana for a little bit, and after we go through each team individually, we'll come back and talk about our favorite individual players. Again, for me, this is a really difficult slate not to just lock and load Domantas Sabonis, who has been nothing short of sensational to start the year. He's got one game that wasn't great against Boston. He still hit a floor of 42 points. And if you're looking for just one more reason to play him today, like TJ Warren, one of their other really good scorers, is not playing today. So his offensive role could even get, I feel better about the 18 shots today that he's done twice than I do the 12 or 11 that he's done twice.
I think that he looks like a great play on paper, but I think that if you're like fading this game, then he's not a lock.
Sure.
Not a price. Like if you're under the impression that Indiana just rolls here, like I don't hate him because it's a 2-game slate and someone's going to need to do something for Indiana. But like you said, the other game also has expensive players.
Yeah, man. Like if you want to roll Levine, Westbrook, Beal, you're not going to be able to afford Sabonis. Like if you're flat out game stacking that, but like in an optimal lineup, I don't expect either of these games to be a blowout. Like I'm not calling for that. I do think Cleveland will hang with Indiana today, make it a good game. And I think Sabonis is a guy that I want from this game, and then I'll fill in with the pieces from the other game.
Yeah, for sure. Makes sense.
So, like Malcolm Brogdon, I don't know that I get here today, but I have zero arguments with playing him. He's a good player. Again, no TJ Warren. So that's good for Brogdon, Oladipo, and Sabonis.
It is very good.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this game overall? I'm assuming you expect it to be competitive.
I do expect it to be competitive, although I am worried that like Cleveland came back down to earth last game, and Indiana's just a better team.
They're a better team, no questions about it. Cleveland's played well to start the year. You're right, they came back down to earth. And if you're looking, I'm assuming that's the biggest spread on the day, right? Indiana favored by 7.5 versus Washington favored by 5.5, despite just losing to Chicago and having not won yet.
Yeah, right.
So, the beginning of the NBA year is a little weird. So anything can happen. Cleveland could roll today. I wouldn't put money on that, but it could happen.
It could happen. Sure. It's probably the least likely outcome of in the 2 games, but it's not like that crazy to think. Cleveland's got some talent. This is a game, though, like, I think the reason the other game's so much more attractive is just, because it's so much more attractive, right? Like, the last slate that we played, that game was a game we loved. On this game, I don't think we'd love it on any slate. The only appeal is that it's the different game. I think you'll agree with that.
I don't mind the Pacers guys. I like the fact that they don't have Warren today, and I think Cleveland's going to fight and play hard enough that they're going to be out there for 4 quarters. Oladipo's been playing better. He's got 3 straight games of 35 plus. He's only 6,600. I feel like you can run him at the shooting guard today, no questions about it. And I like the fact that TJ Warren's not around. Also, I know you and I both watched almost every minute of Chicago versus Washington the other day. Now, the scores got there, but it was 107 to 115. So, it wasn't as fast-paced as I feel like we were expecting.
No doubt about that. I will say those teams were really off. Like, the announcers, I watched a lot of that game, the Wizards announcers mentioned several times, like, both teams just don't have a lot of energy tonight. And the game was still 105 to 1, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know we both watched almost all that game. And, again, I had Westbrook and Levine, and they both were good. But you want to know what? There was plenty of times I was nervous about them during the game.
Yeah, me too. Let me ask you kind of a devil's advocate type question, though. The Cleveland-Indiana game is the first game. And do you think other people, I know other people will be thinking, like, it's the different game, but is there a chance, like, it goes over-owned because of that?
Maybe. You know how us gamblers and DFS players are. Like, we want the action immediately, and we want our guys we can watch. There's probably a lot of people off of work today. This game's probably not on TV, though, either, unless you have the package.
True. That's true.
So, I don't know. But you can still watch and follow along. Also, it's a 2-game slate, so it's not like, like Drummond maybe isn't going to be as popular as he would be some days. But he's still going to – you're getting him at, 30, 40, 50%? You're not getting him at 1%.
Exactly.
So, the other thing is TJ Warren is out today, which means I do think Justin Holiday and Doug McDermott make for optimal fill-in guys.
Agreed.
And I don't know who's going to be starting necessarily, but it doesn't matter because there are sometimes coming in with the second unit. It's just fine, and they're both going to play some minutes.
100%.
So I don't know about you. Do you have a preference? Like if you could roster Holiday at 3,900 or McDermott at 4,400, any preference?
Oh, man. Not overly. Not really. I guess, no, I don't. I really don't like either of them. I would prefer not to roster either of them. And if I had to, it'd be Holiday.
Okay. And I just think when we get to lineup construction, you're going to need salary somewhere. And you mentioned early on, there's no pay down options today. They're limited. So good luck finding a lot more besides these two guys. And I'm not super thrilled with either of them either. You could also look at TJ McConnell. I mean, he might play a little bit more. They might slide Depot to the 3, maybe, but I wouldn't expect him to play more than his typical 19 minutes.
I think I'd use McGee over them, and I understand he takes up a center spot, and I just don't. There aren't really good centers on this slate. I could see using Drummond and McGee.
Sure, and that's the thing with if we look at this next game, like I've liked Wendell Carter's role the last couple days. He definitely looks like he's starting to look more like that guy, but he's 6K today. And I am not dying to roster him, even close to it. I think like he had 30 last game, which is okay on 6,000. But if you ask me to bet on the 45 he had against Golden State or the 23 against Indiana, I'm betting on the 23 against Indiana.
Same.
Okay. Remember we see that one eye to eye. Thomas Bryant has, I don't know, he hasn't done much for me this year. Now, Bertans is getting extra run and Rui is back. He's not my guy today.
No. It's hard to like anyone from Washington except Westbrook and Beal.
I agree. Well, I do think you can look at Bertans as well.
Yeah, sure.
They came out last game and announced before the game that he was going to see a minutes bump, and he played 26. Had a nice game at 31.5 points. Didn't do anything special. Hit 3 of 9 from 3. Grabbed a couple of boards. And this is a guy they paid a butt ton of money. So even with Rui back, I still expect him to play at least 25 minutes.
Yeah, I agree.
So he fits the build. And then I'm with you. As far as Washington goes, it's Westbrook. It's Beal. Like, I'm not like, I was looking at Avdija today a little bit, but now that I know Rui's back, like, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, I think he'll still play, but it doesn't make you feel good.
Like, I wouldn't touch Troy Brown with your money, and Bonga doesn't do anything for me. So I don't think Avdija's like a terrible play. I just don't think I'm going to use him today until I watch to see how they incorporate Rui. And they're paying Bertans a ton of money, so he's going to see his.
For sure. No doubt about that. I agree.
Okay. And then from a Chicago side of things, Markkanen's questionable. And if I had to make a gut call, I don't think he's going to play today. He was questionable last game. He played for 10 minutes? No, he did play 19, then he never came back out. I don't think he's going to play today, but that's just a guess.
Same.
So I do think Otto Porter's a guy you could look at.
I agree. He played well last game also.
Yeah, he was relatively aggressive, shooting 7 threes, but, he's 5,400, so he is far from a lock. I'd play him over Patrick Williams, but, ooh. Okay, Thad Young just didn't see the court. That's another guy that will get maybe thrown in the mix eventually.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see him being like a DNP CD all season.
No, especially if Markkanen's out today. He could play a few minutes. Just if you're looking for – I mean, I wouldn't play him. I'm just saying if you're looking for a reason not to play Porter and Williams, he could come in.
Yeah, I could see Porter getting a lot of love if Markkanen's out.
I agree. Temple's been playing some minutes lately as well. He played 29 minutes the other day.
Yeah, he did. He doesn't do much, but he played 29 minutes, and this isn't a bad spot.
I mean, the big thing is he's 3,300, right? And if you're just desperate to finish your lineup with a cheap guy, I don't know that there's anybody else below 3,500 I have any real interest in today.
Anyone below? Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
So, okay, let's talk about the guards. So, I recommended Zach LaVine the other day. He was rock solid. If you watched this full game like Reed did, it felt like he wasn't going to get there, but he did. He's a good play. He's cheaper today, which I don't mind. However, if you use him, this is going to take you off of a Sabonis, Drummond, or Westbrook because he cannot play all 4.
No doubt about it. So it's all about who you prioritize.
So, you started a saying a couple weeks ago, and we've been using it a lot. Tell yourself a story. If you think both games are competitive, okay, then maybe you want, I don't know, like gun to head, I'd probably take Drummond over Zach LaVine.
Westbrook is obviously the top guy. I feel like that's easy, right? And then after that, it's you like Sabonis more than I do. I like Sabonis, but it is definitely like Levine, Drummond, and Sabonis are all right there for me. I might take Levine over Drummond.
Okay. And I'm not going to argue that. I like both guys.
So do I. Is there no way to get all four?
Not reasonably. So if you go Westbrook, Levine, Sabonis, let's cross this off, and Drummond, like now you're stuck with 36-25 per offensive guy. You're going to have a terrible lineup. I think you have to remove one of them.
So you're going to have to use like Temple and like McGee and then like Holiday and McDermott, all four of those guys.
And even that won't fit because you're at 36. You got to take one of these guys out. And I agree. Westbrook is the priority unless you're stacking the early game.
Yeah. Well, I feel like if you're stacking the early game, then you can take out Westbrook and Levine.
I agree. And I will have a stack of the early game. I think it's the less optimal game, but we've seen blowouts everywhere. Like, man, Washington's 0-4. I could completely see a scenario where they just come out on fire today. Beal's on fire. Bertans is on fire. Westbrook is hitting his mid-range jumpers. And Chicago, who's been playing better, just isn't good today.
Yeah, I could definitely see that scenario. I mean, the line says it a lot. The fact that, like you mentioned, Washington's favored by 6. They haven't won, and they just got rolled by the Bulls. You know, like, it's a little bit odd.
Mm-hmm. You also have the shooting guard spot. Levine, I would rather play over Oladipo, but Oladipo's $1,300 cheaper and is actually averaging more points this year.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I would never guess that he's averaging more points.
You know, Levine had those 2 stinkers early on because they got rolled, but also Oladipo's playing more minutes. He's been shooting the ball better. He's a year off of the surgery, so you'd expect him to be better this year. I like Oladipo today.
Yeah, I mean, he looks very, very reasonable at 6,600.
And again, no TJ Warren. You know, Indiana has Brogdon, Oladipo, Sabonis, and Warren usually. 4 pretty good scorers, and that's one of the reasons Miles Turner doesn't score is because he just doesn't have to. But, like, they're minus one of those guys.
100%. This slate is very interesting just in the sense that it's only a 2-gamer, so obviously everyone gets love, but one game stands out much more than the other.
You know, another guy that we've talked about a couple times this year is Kobe White.
Yeah.
And he still doesn't have his on-fire game. He's played 36 and 37 minutes in the last 2 competitive games. He has the ball a lot. He's handling it a lot more than Zach LaVine, as it seems like. He's only got 2 steals and 1 block this year, so there's some room for growth right there. And they were talking about this during the broadcast the other day. Like, he's starting to learn from Thomas Shataransky. Like, what they meant by that is just let the game come to him instead of forcing it. Like, you can see, like, being a full-time point guard is still a little bit of a learning curve for him, but they feel like they're watching growth with him every single day.
Yeah, speaking of which, how about Shataransky?
You know, I don't think he's an optimal play because he eats up a point guard spot. He's a little bit more expensive today, but he did play well the other day. You know, he had a really good fourth quarter.
Yes, he did. He got an extended run.
Yeah. I'm not dying to get here, but you're not exactly loaded with cheap guys today. So I can understand, especially if you're not playing Kobe White or Zach LaVine.
Yeah, exactly. 100. Like, he's a guy where, like, if I were stacking the first game, I'd be really looking at hard.
All right, so let's just look at Chicago and Washington for a second and just think, like, man, if I'm not playing, like, this is one of those spots where you could get me onto Avija because I think he'll see his minutes if the game were to get a little lopsided. So, like, we could roll over here to this game. You know, you put Oladipo into the shooting guard spot, Sabonis right here, and Drummond right here. So now I got Oladipo, Sabonis, Drummond. Now I'm probably going to run it back with, like, a Garland. You know, maybe like a Holiday. Does that get me anyone? And then I can run with, like, a Nance.
But yeah, the only guy really, you don't have Sexton or Brogdon, but
can't have everybody, right?
It is what it is.
Right? Well, maybe you make a small change if you really like, say, Brogdon or Sexton over Nance. Like, if you were to run, because, I mean, I like Sexton more than Nance, ideally.
See, also, here's one where I could roll Garrett Temple.
Sure, because go over to the small forward spot or McDermott, although that's everybody from this game, so you can't do that. No, I have Shataransky.
But, like, I don't really want McDermott in a game stack, personally. Like, I feel like he's, like, just an extra piece.
Yeah, he might get a few extra minutes, though, today with no TJ Warren. But the thing is, like, when he gets hot, it's from 3-point range, and then that's eating into Oladipo and Sabonis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's where I think you could use a Satoransky, a Vija, anything like that.
I would definitely be looking at Temple at 3,300 because then I think you could get like Brogdon also.
I'm with you. So now let's flip it around for a second. Like, if we are playing a game stack of the other game, this is where we mentioned like the Javel Mcgee play, and maybe let's just say like a Holiday for now. Cheap guys from this game. Now we go over here to Washington, Chicago, and I mean we're both going to agree. You start with Russell Westbrook, Levine probably, and maybe Kobe White as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. I want all of them. I mean, honestly, I probably want Beal.
If we go with Bertans, can we get Beal? Yes, we can.
Garrett Temple.
Garrett Temple. Boom shakalaka.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about a game stack on a 2-game slate, and this specifically for a 2-game slate, like on a 9-game slate, you need your game stack to go to overtime to really kind of be the optimal play. But on a 2-game slate, it does come down to one of these games just busting. I mean, go over to like just taking a look at the scores from last night. We had this game busted a little bit outside of Jaylen Brown. Not that like Valanciunas and like Dylan Brooks were terrible, but it wasn't what you wanted it to be because Jaylen Brown was like NBA Jam on fire.
The Memphis guys weren't good enough either. Like they weren't awful, but they weren't good enough.
Yeah, exactly. The Hornets rolled on the Mavs. I cashed pretty easily last night in cash games, but it would have been a great lineup if it wasn't for the fact that Luka was like puke on your shoes types of terrible.
Yeah, and then the next game was very close, and guys were good, especially for the Spurs.
This is also a game where you felt fortunate. I know you liked DeRozan and I liked Murray, but you had to feel a little fortunate this one tightened up in the fourth quarter, so those guys saw their fourth quarter run. It was on that weird precipice where a couple of Lakers threes, and Murray's probably not out there anymore for me.
Yeah, I loved Murray, though, so I'm pretty sure I mentioned him yesterday to you, so I'm going to take that one also.
Yeah, I mean, Murray was great. I was happy as hell that he balled like he did. But I know, like, I was sitting there watching this game thinking, man, like, we just need it just to tighten up a little bit just to make sure my boys see their fourth quarter.
For sure. It got a little bit out of hand, like, late, but they made a run in the fourth to cut it. And then the last game, man, I actually had a lineup that was really solid and had Paul George and Dame late, and it got out of hand. They didn't see their fourth quarter run.
Yeah, and the whole reason we talk about that is because there really is no way to accurately predict on a repeated fashion which game that's going to be like a 20-point discrepancy at the beginning of fourth quarter. And then one of those teams hits a couple threes to get it closer, and then your boys come back in, or extend that lead and your boys don't see the court. Like, so that's the name of the game these days.
One thing, and I knew this was an issue when we were going to make this video when you asked me last night about when we wanted to make it, but hasn't been brought up at all. Washington plays a back-to-back tomorrow. They're the only team that plays a back-to-back tomorrow. I know they're resting Westbrook on the one half of back-to-backs. Has it been announced he's playing today?
I'm under the impression, based on what I read, he's playing today, but I don't think it's not. It could change. I mean, obviously, things are much, much different if Russell Westbrook has announced it out. I have the expectation of him playing today, but I don't believe it's like formally 100% announced.
If he were out, like besides making Beal like basically a must play, who would you like?
If Westbrook were to be out, yes, I would love Beal. I'm assuming Raul Neto would start again. And we just saw him have the game of his life when he started. I don't expect 40, but I think I expect him to do about 20.
Honestly, I don't even hate him on this slate, even if Westbrook's in. He shot the ball awful last game. He's cheap. Don't hate him.
Also, Ish Smith lost run in that game because Raul Neto was playing better. But Ish Smith is better than Raul Neto. So I think Neto would start, and I think a lot of people would go there. But I think Ish Smith could be the better play. He just lost run because Neto had the game of his life. We know Neto is not that dude.
We do. We know that. But it does seem like they like Neto more than Ish.
Yeah, but can't you see, like, Ish has played more minutes in the games when Westbrook played.
Yeah, that is a little bit interesting.
So Can you not see a scenario where Raul Neto plays like Raul Neto instead of like a good player, and
Yeah.
Ish Smith plays 27, 28 minutes
You betcha.
at lower ownership?
Yeah, I mean, I like that call a lot.
Like, remember the other day when Neto was 3,200 and Ish was 57? Like, they're almost the same price now.
Truth.
So that's a pivot I would like a lot. I'm with you, though. Beal would be like auto lock.
Yeah, Beal would be very, very hard to get away from. Honestly, Beal looks good with Westbrook.
Yeah, and I'd probably like Bertans a little bit more. So
even like a Thomas Bryant, I mean, it opens up a lot for this team.
It does, because now you're taking away 35 minutes at a guard position.
Yeah, and all those rebounds, all that stuff.
Yeah, all the usage is just insane when Westbrook is out there. And Beal wasn't great the other day when Westbrook was out. I faded him that day. It was that Sunday slate. Just because he was coming off of a 37-minute back-to-back against a slower-moving team, and he was all right, but he wasn't very, Curry was better.
Yeah, he was fine. He was obviously not great.
I think you went with Levine, right?
I like him a lot more in this spot than I do a couple of days ago.
Yeah, like you went with Levine on Sunday, right? And he did 53 at almost, higher points at less money, if I remember.
Yes, exactly. Less ownership for sure.
So today's different, though. I'm with you. I like Beal a lot more today if Westbrook is out than I did the other day.
Yeah, I also feel like, man, if Westbrook's out, part of me is like, I know this is a weird way to think. Part of me thinks that it increases their chances to just roll because they're used to playing. I'm not saying that Westbrook doesn't make this team better. I would never say that because he's the best player on the team. But we're just talking about a one-game sample size. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, all I'm saying is if Westbrook's out and they still roll.
Maybe. They haven't won yet this year, so
they're better than that.
Yeah, they're itching to get a W, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like they're not a great team, but they're better than that, and they played so far this year. And they are, like you said, itching to get a W. It kind of feels like when they play well, they might play real well.
I agree. Okay. From a cash game perspective today, fellas, this is where I think I'd be starting. Just to reiterate, like this is the only video for this slate. There's no write-up. The write-up is only for the night slate for paying customers and stuff like that, just to give you a heads up. This is more just, hey, thank you for the help. We want to throw this out there for you guys. I think for me in a cash lineup today, I am starting with Russell Westbrook and Sabonis as the two guys that I'm inking. And then I have to start building around that. And so then, we mentioned that the center position's kind of weak, and that's where the Cleveland guys I got in my back pocket. But moving over to the shooting guard position, look, I want Zach LaVine, but I don't think I can get there today. So I think for me, I'm kind of leaning on Oladipo right here.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're like not worried about game stacking or anything of that. I mean, just play the best plays, and it looks like Oladipo's probably a stronger play at a cheaper price point.
Yeah, and I know I need that cap space.
Well, the difference between Oladipo and 5K guy is different on today's slate than most slates, than like LaVine and 3,900 guy or whatever.
Agreed. Now we move down to the small forward position. I will say that if we get word that Markkanen is out, then I definitely feel even better about Temple right here. I love the cap space that he offers. Markkanen being out, while him and Temple don't play the same position, you slide Porter down to the 4 and you play Temple at the 3.
I agree. I actually do think Thaddeus Young is sneaky as well.
Hell yeah. Also, don't be surprised if Thad Young is just in the starting lineup, so they don't have to switch up the rotation 100%.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yes, exactly.
Now, do I get Drummond in the center spot? I can, and it does weaken the rest of my lineup significantly. So, if we put Drummond right there, obviously I'm out of Sexton, Brogdon, Kobe White territory. And this is where I would probably have to look at also playing a Justin Holiday or Satoransky.
True.
Which I'm not pumped about. Holiday, and then happens, can I get Bertans right here? Ugly. I can, but it's ugly. And then I don't, what about Exum? Ugh. It's hard to get to Exum and feel comfortable with it. So you may be better served today by double studding and not triple studding, and then hitting up the mid-tier a little bit. Because look at what happens if you put JaVale McGee in here. Now I don't have to play Justin Holiday and Garrett Temple. I can choose one or the other. I can go over to the guard spot and I can roster, say, a Garland and Porter, or I could get up to, let's just say Zach LaVine. Where does that bring me? Satoransky.
Sure.
Maybe you go down from Zach LaVine and you check out Kobe White, who we both like, and one of these days he's going to blow up.
I like him a lot here.
Okay, and I like him too, and then maybe you compliment him with Porter, especially if Markkanen's out.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the Markkanen news is big, but I'm with you that I don't think he plays. And I also am with you that I really don't love Satoransky today. Not that I loved him the last night, but it seemed like we both got on him because he was so cheap. The counter I'll say is that...
Did you use him last night? I didn't use him at all.
Oh, I thought when I messaged you, I did use him last night.
I did not.
You must... So I said that I sent you something that I used someone 100% in my lines, and I had put Satoransky in there also. I thought you responded that you did also. But I did use him last night. I don't like him as much as I did last slate, and I'm upset that he's more expensive. However, he's still really cheap relative to this slate.
Yeah, he is. He always seems like a guy that, because they have White and LaVine, could bust so easily. But he does play his minutes, 20 to 25 a game.
Yeah. I also will say, though, the other thing that kind of worries me about him is, like, in a blowout, I don't see him getting, like, extended run. Do you?
Let me take a look at the Chicago Bulls backcourt again. I mean, Arcidiacono is barely played, but he could be out there a little bit.
Like, it seems like when they've gotten rolled, they've used, like, this Makoka and Arcidiacono, like, gone way deep on their bench. Because Satoransky's, like, an older guy.
Yeah, I think he's not young. I think he's approaching 30, if I had to guess. Okay, I was just curious.
A bunch younger than me, so.
Well, everybody's younger than me that's playing, so yes, I'm with you on that one. He is 29 years of age.
Okay.
So, lucky guess on my part.
Yep.
Because that's all that it was. I don't know. It's about how I see it. Like, if you were making a GPP lineup this morning and you could only enter one, where are you starting? Like, who are your musts?
Westbrook.
And guys, just from a simplistic standpoint, Westbrook is 58, 59, and 60 points this year, and he's still under 10K. He's triple-doubled in every game. He hasn't done anything that isn't highly replicable. He's shot not great. He has no blocks, only 3 steals. He's made 1 3-pointer. He's been very good, and again, he could hit 75 today. I don't think any of us would sneeze at it.
So as much as I'm intrigued by the first game at lower ownership, I do think that because it's the first game and because people will just want it to get different, it will get love. So my first thought is I want to stack the second game. And the big reason to that is because, like I said, last game, these teams did not play well. They looked lethargic, and they still, hit like a 120 plus or 220 plus total. So I think this game has just higher upside, obviously. And the thought of going to the first game, I like it in tournaments. I just don't really like the game.
I think that just goes to an overall strategic standpoint. If you don't like something, don't just do it just to do it.
I'm more apt to not play this slate than go heavy on the Cleveland, Indiana game. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's just how I feel about it, especially with a main slate a few hours later that I know we're going to be covering even more in depth. I don't feel the need to go heavy on this slate personally.
Okay. So we start with Westbrook. Shooting guard, Beal, LaVine, Kobe White. Gun to head, you can only make one play.
Say that again?
If you're stacking this game, who is your ideal shooting guard? Probably LaVine. Kobe White? Okay.
I like all of them, but Kobe White's just the first guy I think of.
All right. Small forward then, are we thinking Otto Porter, or we want to punt here with a Holiday or Doug McDermott from the other game just to pay down?
I love the Temple call.
Oh yeah, Temple. I forgot about him. Especially if Markkanen is out, which we may not know, guys.
I think he's fine if Markkanen's in, and a lock if he's out. And I like Bertans here. Javel Mcgee. Beal. LaVine. I guess your boy Holiday. At the end of the day, I'm fine with him there. Or Thaddeus Young.
Yeah, I think, you need Thaddeus Young probably to be starting, though, to have the balls to play him.
I agree.
Also, because it's the later game, we may not know about marketing, just for an overall strategic standpoint.
But I like this line.
Yeah. And just keep going to the Thaddeus Young thing, guys. Like, we may not know about marketing. Like, you just don't want to risk a DNP unless you have good knowledge that marketing's not in, and also that the coach is giving him some encouragement today. I'm with you. I expect him to be in the rotation eventually, but the fact he didn't play last game, it's tough to roster him if you don't know marketing's out.
For sure. I'm with that.
Because the DNP, like, you're out. Not only are you out on winning GPPs, like, you're probably out of even being in the competition for cash games.
Well, the other thing is, like, I really don't love Justin Holiday, but, like, it's not like Thaddeus Young is that much better. I mean, let's be real, right?
Yeah, let's be real. You're not supposed to love Justin Holiday.
I mean, yeah, but it's not like Thaddeus Young is some stud. I mean, they're going to put up if Thaddeus Young plays, I think they're going to put up a similar. If they play the same minutes, I think they have a similar box score. Do you agree?
Yeah, probably. But, like, Justin Holiday's playing big minutes right now, so from a safety perspective, like, that at least you know he's out there. You have something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, even the upside for Young isn't even that real.
Yeah, exactly. Because Thaddeus Young's not playing 30 minutes today.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still Thaddeus Young.
Yeah. I like Thad Young as a player, but the DNP is a lot more realistic than 30 minutes.
For sure. I'm with that.
So I would only play Thad Young if Markkanen was out and he was announced as a starter. And even then, I don't think he plays more than 20 minutes.
Agreed.
So
I like this line a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a high upside game, it's going to be the second one more than likely.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we talked about the first game a lot at the beginning, and I love the points, low ownership, etc. It just doesn't have the appeal to me as the second game does.
Yeah, the guys I like from the first game, though, I like Oladipo and I like Sabonis because there's at least a floor there with those guys. Because it's not like Indiana's going to get up 30 in the first quarter and then sit those dudes.
For sure, that's true.
I've already talked about, though, like, I think the Cleveland guys are the ones that will be overlooked, and maybe you don't like them, so don't do it. But I do think, like, you're going to get Garland at pretty low ownership.
I do too.
Drummond will get some love because he's been awesome, but he might get a little underappreciated because I think Westbrook gets more love.
Definitely agreed. Trying to figure out who the odd man out is going to be between Westbrook, Sabonis, Drummond, and LaVine. Obviously not Westbrook. So really, who's the lowest owned between LaVine, Drummond, and Sabonis?
All right, so let's go over what we're talking here. Is as far as the guys above, say 7,900 and above, I think we agree Westbrook will be the highest owned.
Easily.
And then after that, my guess would be Sabonis.
I think Sabonis and Drummond.
And then Drummond.
Then LaVine.
Yeah, because I think Beal falls into the category that once everybody rosters Westbrook, they're not going to be able to get to Bradley Beal.
Unless you're, like, stacking the second game.
Yeah, I agree. I think Beal is the lowest owned of the five. I just think he falls into Westbrook's the priority. Most people don't want to do this. They don't want to put all their eggs into Washington's basket. Westbrook's a better play on paper than Beal. And
there's no reason Beal and Westbrook should be basically the same price.
I agree. Although you're going to see a lot of it this year with all Westbrook resting and all the back-to-backs.
So that's another reason why, like, I feel like while the second game is more appealing and gets more love overall, I also feel like we just said, Beal is not going to be that popular on this slate. LaVine will get love, but I think Sabonis and Drummond will be higher priorities.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Who do you think gets more love, Oladipo or Kobe White?
Oladipo. It's hard not to see those DK points per game.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. And I kind of do like Oladipo a little bit better right here. I like the fact that TJ Warren's out and they're down one of their main scorers.
We both, me and you, really like Kobe White. I feel like we like him more than the masses.
Definitely. I think people liked him last year when he was cheap, but I don't think everybody's wise to the fact that he is now the full-time point guard for the Chicago Bulls, and he hasn't balled yet this year. Once he drops one of those games where he hits 8 or 9 3-pointers, then I think people would be more turned on by him.
Of course. Agreed.
And this is the big point for the Pacers, guys. TJ Warren is out today. He plays about 30 minutes a game and takes about 15 shots a game. And that's no longer there today. That's why Oladipo, to me, is a better play than even normal.
Mm-hmm. I'm with it.
So, all right, guys, good luck. And we'll drop information for the night slate in not too long.
Thanks, guys.